Hello, Ardith.
How's it going?
Awesome.
Hey, Amber.
Hello. Hi, Anita.
Hello,
How
Anita.
are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Hey, Jean, how are you?
Good. Hi, everyone.
Hello, Jean.
We're just waiting for Anne Marie. Anne Marie's our new member tonight. She joined the group partway through the month. So welcome her. I did hear from her. It sounded like she had done the homework and I saw that she posted it in. So that was great. And she was able to watch the previous session recording. Welcome, Anne Marie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Welcome to our group. I'm glad that we were able to connect over Mastrius chat, and I saw you posted your homework, so that's fantastic. And I'm assuming you watched the previous session in the session.
I did. Yes, I did.
Good. So you feel a bit caught up then?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Do you have any questions before we get started?
No. I think I'm just ready to get into it.
Wonderful. Okay.
Dive in, right?
Yes.
Great. Well, welcome everyone to our mentorship group with Ardith Goodwin. My name is Annea Jones. I'm your navigator. Of course, all of you know me. Anne Marie is new. So welcome, Anne Marie. We're going to introduce you, Anne Marie, since we've already met once as a group. But we're really happy that you've joined us now as mentorship. It's a progressive, but each session is separate from each other. So you can jump in at any time. So I'm glad that you have joined us. Anne-Marie, would you be able to tell us where you're from and a bit about your art journey, what brought you to Mastrius, why you want to be mentored by Ardith?
I live in St. Albert, Alberta, just outside of Edmonton, and started painting with my mom when I was little and stopped for many years and then picked it up again. I should mention my sister's in this group, so she knows this story. That's Jean.
Awesome. That's great.
And so I picked up, I think, painting again with Jean in PEI. We used to go to these summer classes, and that was in acrylics. And then paused again. Then I started taking some lessons near home in oil. Before the pandemic, I'd say maybe a couple of years, and it was good to get started, but the instructor and I just wasn't a good fit. And then I started up with Mastrius in 2021. Once again, Jean and influence. I guess Jean's my influencer. And I was a member in a group she was navigating, and just from there, it just has seemed to have skyrocketed for me. It's been a very positive experience. I'm really fully into oils and abstract now. What was I going to say? Also starting to dive into some other things like gouache and pastel, and just sort of playing with some different, I guess, techniques or media. And sorry, what was the other question? I started to talk and I don't know what I was saying.
I think, yeah. What are you hoping to get out of your mentorship, Ardith?
What I see of Ardith in terms of the videos and her Instagram, she's very inspirational and such a creative person. And I love to be around creative people. That's kind of how I flourish. And that art instructor I was talking about that didn't work out, it wasn't an inspiring, creative situation for me. So since then, I've been very careful. Like, I like to learn new things, but if I'm in a situation where I feel that spark is starting to disappear, then I now disappear. So
I knew that line was coming.
Did you? I didn't even know it was coming. So Ardith, I don't know. I feel creative when I hear her and see her work, and the color, as you can see in my backdrop, I love color, and her images just explode off the screen for me. So very excited.
There will be lots of sparks here.
Good.
Great. Anne-Marie, you're in good company. I think we all have a sense of that, wanting to be around those that are building our creativity and creating that spark in our art journey. So that's definitely how I have been feeling lately as well. And, being more of an advocate for myself to make sure that I'm putting myself in a situation where I feel that spark and creative flow. Awesome. Welcome. I just have some quick announcements. I'll share our announcement video from our founder, Julie DeBoer. Just one moment here.
Welcome to your session, everyone. I'd also community and team with you. Thanks for listening. Enjoy your session.
Hey, and while I'm sharing, I just wanted to give you the agenda for tonight, what we're planning on doing in our group. Okay. So tonight, yeah, just a few more announcements. Remember, you can always invite a friend for free to each of our events. This week is YouTube for artists. We have Lauren Wattry and Belinda Del Pasco talking about YouTube, and I know Belinda has monetized those things for herself, so it should be a really interesting panel. And if you didn't catch Brian Buckerell's demo last week, it was excellent. You have a couple more days to rewatch that if you'd like. And if you, last week there was a painting challenge with Julie DeBoer. So part 2 of it is on Friday. So there's still time to submit something or just join in and see what everyone else has submitted. Then tonight, we'll be going over our wins and challenges. So Anne-Marie in our group, we always share something that maybe we're celebrating, and it can be art related or not art related. And then we share a challenge that we're having. Then we'll go through some burning questions, feedback on our homework, setting goals, and then all of you submitted a image for critique, and that's how we'll end the session, followed by Ardith giving us a little homework assignment. So perfect. All right, so yeah, celebrations. Is there anyone that would like to go first, share a win and a challenge?
Sure. I
Okay.
have 2 wins.
Yay.
They both came back to back. My goal this year, as some of you know, is to get myself out past the boundaries of Creston, BC, get my art out there. I was accepted for an online artists. Oh, my brain just went blank. Mentorship, not mentorship, artist. Oh, what's the word? Annea,
It's just
anyway.
Sounds like.
Residency.
Residency.
Oh!
That's awesome.
I submitted a proposal to do what it's like to be a self-taught mixed media artist, learning from 6 other mentor artists and how I'm incorporating all of this into my own work. And for the month of May, once a week, I'll do a 2,000 word, up to 2,000 word blog post following that journey. And then right after I got that, I received a notification from a new online magazine called The Closed Eye Open. And it's about promoting art that doesn't typically resonate with other traditional artist magazines. And they are putting my mixed media face into their spring issue. And I am
Fantastic.
That's huge.
awesome.
Woo!
and they don't pick a lot of art. They do a lot of poetry and writing, and they use the art to complement it. So I was really honored because they're poetry heavy and art. They're not so many selections with the art. So I was really excited about that.
Go Lynn. Go Lynn.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yay. So keep
Honor.
submitting. It all comes in all together. And my struggle this week, and I know you won't empathize, is that I have to cook again after spending 2 weeks at an all-inclusive resort.
We do not emphasize.
Poor Lynn.
Struggle is real.
That was the news.
Lynn, did you want to tag someone else? And feel free, someone can tag Ardith as well. We'd love for Ardith to share as well.
Oh, okay. Then on that note, I will tag Ardith.
I'm like, open the door and walk right through. Win. I've got a big online show launching tomorrow with Artburst Studios. It's called Inside, Outside, Upside Down. It's their inaugural show. It is 23 artists and over 250 works. I've got 8 pieces that I have in that collection. And what I consider a win is that at the beginning of this year, I made the decision for the next 2 years to bring my children's book project front and center to everything that I do, instead of just painting for galleries and stuff. So this is the first kind of experience I'm going to have in showcasing some of my small studies in one of the character sets. So I'm really stoked about that. And then I landed a solo show October 2024 and I have the entire gallery. So potentially 60 pieces.
Wow.
And I'll launch the book, The Land of Ardithian, and the book characters in there. It's going to be an outrageously over the top show. So that's it. I'm like so excited. Can't sleep at night. It's a good thing.
Exciting.
The challenge is the time management and balance. Now that I have this in front of me and I kind of know what's ahead and what I have to accomplish, just figuring out the best strategy for time management, what to let go of, even if I love it, what to hang on to. That's proving to be a bit of a job, but it's all in, it's all in business. So it's good. I mean, it's a good challenge to have.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thanks, Ardith. Ardith and Lynne, I'd love for you to post those opportunities in our feed so we can look you up in there. So, Ardith, do you want to tag someone else to go?
How about Amber?
Sure. My celebration is just actually something that I found or was kind of like introduced to me in the last couple of weeks. You guys have probably done this before, but I had never, and it's blind contour drawing, where you don't look at your paper, you only look at the subject in life, and you don't lift your pencil off of the page while you draw it. And I'm just having so much fun doing those drawings. It's just bringing me a lot of joy, and some of the results are just so funny. I want to paint them or find other ways to incorporate them into my art. So that's been really fun. And then my challenge, as always, is just the time, like on office days when I'm working full time, finding the time on weekdays to also dedicate to my art instead of just like getting home and wanting to sit in front of the TV before bed. But the blind contours kind of help with that, because even today at work, I was able to just take a break for a few minutes and do one like in my workbook at work. So I just did my Tim Hortons coffee cup. But anyways, yeah, so it was really fun discovering that. And I will tag Anita.
Okay. Over the past month, I sold 2 of my bear paintings, which I basically painted bears all of last year, and I only have 1 left. So I gotta. So yeah, I gotta get going, and they were to be my series to apply to galleries, but I'm gonna take a sale if it happens. So yeah, I gotta I kind of gained all other knowledge now from my mentors. So now new and improved bears will be on the horizon. My challenge this month has been, as you guys know, getting over COVID. So I'm getting there. It's the first part of February was a little rough, but it's getting better now. So yeah. Let's see. I tagged Jean.
Okay, I guess I kind of look at mine as a win and a challenge together, a backwards one and a forwards one. So of course, the one that I just did was to paint in Mexico, plein air, with oil, new equipment, new medium, 100 no-see-um bug bites. But that to me is a win, because I actually like challenge. Like I come back from something like that very invigorated and ready to break the norm. And I tend to do that, right? Like you get into it and then you break it, right? And so it's kind of that pattern for me right now, that if I can push a little bit, then I can keep shifting closer and closer to what I want. And so part of that is a forward one, is that, you know, I applied to a bunch of things too, Lynn, and there's a couple of shows I didn't get into, and I was getting a little bummed about it. Anne-Marie knows this because she said, you got to do that 5-second funeral thing. And I'm going, okay, well, you know, I need 5 minutes. And so one of the things that came out of that is a couple other people didn't get into the Pi Square show in March. And so we decided we're just going to create our own, because we're mathematicians, actually. We love Pi Day, and we're just going to do this little one ourselves. And so sometimes you just have to keep breaking things and rebuilding them, in even if they're little wins. Not that I've painted one of those paintings yet, because I don't have the time to, but you know, that's our journey, right? One thing after the other, but it's not letting the things that don't work stop you either. And I think that's what I'm learning through this, is there's no straight journey in this thing at all. So it's good.
That's a fantastic learning, Jean. I love that.
Yeah.
Who are you tagging next?
I'm going to tag, well, Anne-Marie is going to go again, or is it Annea? Who's the next?
Whoever wants.
Anne-Marie? Go for it.
Anne-Marie, yeah.
Okay. Well, I just got back from Thailand, so that's a celebration and a challenge because I'm incredibly jet lagged. So I guess that's my challenge right now. But it was very invigorating, and I didn't art at all the whole time. I just took it all in, and I took a lot of pictures, and I think I really needed it. Like, this has been feels like a long, cold winter, and my soul needed some sunshine and some ocean water. And so, like, I'm ready just to get started up again. But I feel the challenges, I feel really behind on all of my projects. That's about it.
Cool. Thanks, Anne-Marie. Yeah, for myself, I'll start with the challenge first. I guess the challenge is just making sure I have enough studio time to do the painting that I'd like to do. I kind of had a realization this week that it's okay for me to say no to new things, that I need to focus on all the things I'm already learning and have learned, and actually put them into practice. And so with that challenge is, you know, just balancing life. So a celebration, I'm going to go watch my son play volleyball this weekend, but that's also a challenge because it's taking me away from my studio and getting my paintings done for the next art show, which is a celebration, but then also a challenge. So, but I was really proud of myself that I've recently set more studio hours, and Wednesdays are my studio day, and then they tend to be kind of Friday and Saturdays quite often, and that has felt really good to take some ownership of that and actually put it into practice. That would be both of mine. So wonderful. We're going on to some burning questions now. Jean, I know that you had a burning question. Did you want to ask it?
Yeah, it was funny. You know, I was writing this morning. I'm thinking, how do I actually ask this question? Because it's not a question about chroma. It's not that at all. It's a question about, you know, owning that I love color and I love high chroma, and having a confidence that my people will come. And it's that. And I figured, Ardith, you were a really good person to have this conversation with, because you love color and you've taken it boldly. And you know, because I sit there and I go, well, you know, I'm doing all the things of good values and all, you know, everything in it, but I like the use and the energy that we get out of that higher chroma approach to painting. And it's a good example, because when I was in Mexico, I was learning from somebody who does not do high chroma, who does exactly what the world shows you. And I learned so much through that, but it also felt like I was in this little box and it was pushing against me. And I'm going, okay, I see that, but why do I have to just show that? And does it have the energy that I want? And so I wanted to talk to somebody who has this commitment to color and energy, and you know, I need someone just to say, you know, keep going or something. So that's really what my question is.
Such a good question. And I can only answer it from my experience and my point of view and how I problem solve this for me, because I've always been attracted to color just by nature as a child. I'm just one of those people, you know, I licked Play-Doh as a child. It was just like, wow, all wide open. But when I knew that I wanted to become a full-time working artist and take this seriously, I had about 10 years behind my belt of painting anything and everything I wanted. But I knew I wanted to get into a gallery, so I needed a style and I didn't have it at the time. And I really had to consider what I wanted to paint and how I wanted to paint it. So as I did that, and as I spent months asking those big questions, I realized my subject matter would be or could be very predictable and traditional, meaning a face or a figure or a place or a thing. But I have an absolute love of color. I'm fascinated by it. And I also have a scientific love of energy. And I spent a year studying all the different forms. So what I did was I followed my curiosities. And I am going to answer this question. I'm getting to it. It's a long answer, but I choose to paint in ways that are connected to my curiosities, my fascinations, and what I want to express through pigment and paint. So it is a very intentional choice as to what I'm going to paint and then how I'm going to paint it. And I want to challenge the viewer for them to have a wall experience with my art and it not be something predictable. Even though my subject matter is known or common, I want them to stand and I want them to ponder. I want them to take it in. I want them to consider a different point of view. And I also want them to really step a foot into the concept that we live and are immersed in this amazingly beautiful world that we process through color and light and shadow. And the must. So we're going to talk about must list today. On my must list, there has to be an element of something unpredictable. And color actually is that for me, because I use colors in rogue ways rather than predictable ways, because they give me the opportunity to speak and say things that are important in ways that I couldn't do if I were following a traditional expected path. Does that help you?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I
just needed to hear it from somebody who's gone down this path.
Yeah. And it takes courage. It takes courage to approach paintings in this way because they're not predictable. They're not traditional. So right out of the gate, a market that has an expectation that landscapes should be landscapes and look like landscapes and be colored like landscape are going to be jarred when they see the high chroma and the candy colors, because it's like, but trees are not supposed to be pink. But I've got to connect with joy and my own desire when I paint, because if I'm true to myself and I paint in a way that I feel called to paint, then when I turn around and through my process, tap into joy, I'm going to love what I'm doing. And then when I have a product on the back end, when I finish a painting and I have this product, I'm going to be able to put that product up to my audience or my market. And I'm going to be able to articulate why I love it. And if I have that passion and can do that, it's going to resonate with people that get me. And that's the whole point of why I've got to be true and do things that are a little bit different and unexpected.
Do you find that you over exaggerate those colors so people know I have not intended on this tree being the wrong green? It is pink.
I don't think it's as intentional as that. I think I just begin the painting process with the absolute freedom to use any colors I want to. And sometimes I use a minimal palette. Sometimes I use a Rembrandt palette. Sometimes I use a more predictable palette. But then other times I simply just embrace color, but I pay close attention to values.
Yes.
Values,
Yes.
because those fundamentals do matter.
Yep.
right? So I
Yep.
can paint with Crayola colors and crazy, look at this painting behind me, right? It's all the colors, except maybe brown. I have an aversion to that. But if I know the rules of values and I know when to pair lights and darks and have a range, it's going to be impactful in ways that show mastery. And that's my goal. That's really my goal. I want to use any
And I
colors
think for
want
me,
well.
if I can't go down that path, I think I will lose the joy of
Yep.
painting.
And that's important, Jean. It's important for
Yeah.
you to acknowledge that in you, because we are here for such a short amount of time in our lifetime. Don't waste time trying to fit into the mold of the expectations of others. Do what you feel in your heart you're called to do, but do it with passion.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to challenge you to do.
Well, I have no problem with that. Passion.
Right?
Yeah, no
that.
problem with that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I do have a couple other questions.
Okay.
So one, what's your favorite way of protecting your studio time?
Oh,
And then
geez.
two, when you get stuck on a piece and you're not sure what to do with it, what do you do?
All right, let's start with studio time. I work full-time as a painter, so I have to set my schedule 2 years out. I've got traveling shows. I mean, it's just a bit outrageous what you've got to pre-plan in and know is coming up. It's a blessing and a curse. So some of you may be in the spot where you are hobby painters, or you don't do this full time. You might even have jobs. So your schedules are going to look very different than mine, but I can tell you this. When I identify a goal that I want to reach in my business, or technically whatever that might be, I look at my current schedule and I block in chunks of committed time, and I put it in my calendar in my phone with reminders. And I also put it on my hard copy calendar, and I treat that time just as important as a consultation or an appointment, because if I don't, I'm going to have this slow slide into making excuses and, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh yeah, I'll come help you. And then a week is gone and I've lost it. So really first identifying what my goals are, and then plugging them into timeframes and small chunks, even quarterly, even just in a 3-month window, and then committing to them in the phone, having reminders to set off. That's a huge way that I do that. And then also too, I have an accountability partner. I have one person that's in the trenches with me. We check in every day, even if it's just a text. Did you reach your goals today? Huge, huge impact and win. I highly recommend you find somebody to do that with, because it really makes a difference when you can connect with that person, but also hold each other accountable. You can make such strides. So yeah, so that's how I would answer that.
Thank you.
The second part of this, tell me what the second one was. I'm having a minute.
Part was if you're stuck on a piece.
Oh, how to know when, how to get unstuck. Well, one of my students mailed me what she called an unstuck stick. I wish I could put my hand on it. It's a piece of bamboo, and she painted it, and she put all these phrases to help you get unstuck. And she's like, get it out and whack some things. And it just cracks me up every time I think about it. We all get to a place in our painting process where we may get a little stuck. So and I actually have a checklist I can share with y'all of 10 ways to get unstuck. It's a big part of what I teach every course. I'm going to talk about this because we get stuck. One of the strategies is I'm always working on multiples. Never do I work on one painting at a time anymore, because if I do, I have married my base coat. I have this joke, don't marry Bob. Bob is the base coat. If you are married to Bob, I apologize. But if we fall in love with our initial marks and first layers too quickly, we're going to be unwilling to alter them. And then we box ourselves in. So be very careful about that. If you're working on multiple C, 2 or 3, 3 or 5, you can start them together and then work on it, move, work on it, move, come back to it. And one of the things that does is it really helps you learn to problem solve so much better, because you're not committed to one. You're seeing the potential of how to problem solve composition and contrast and balance and rhythm and all of that movement that you need to do in your head, but you realize you're not going to lose what you love because you have all of these other options. It's another great way too to build your own visual language and style, because it's the consistency of problem solving over time with similar colors, similar brushes, similar ideas. So that's one strategy.
You would use the same color palette then if you were doing multiples at the same time?
Yeah, for the most part, it's like if I know that I want to, let's see this eyeball. If I want to do a study on eyeballs or a painting on eyeballs, I'm going to begin 2 or 3 or 4 eyeball paintings. And if I really want to work with values, I'll do them all in the same color palette. If I want to shake some things up, I might try one cool, one warm, one neutral, and one anything goes. So there tends to be a strategy. But when I'm doing a big show, like the painting behind me, this non-representational, there were 3 started at the same time. So immediately I already have 3 pieces that are very cohesive that I could troubleshoot that way. And I can troubleshoot that way. Had I only began that one, I would have totally got stuck on that one because I love so many things about it. I would have been like, oh, well, I can't do that. I don't want to lose it. So definitely try that. Or when you're in your studio, at the very least, if you're wanting to build a cohesive visual language, have multiple pieces going, even if they're different. So you're still manipulating the brush in similar ways, and you're still learning how to master color. It might be blues here and greens here and maybe pinks or neutrals there, but you are going to release yourself from the expectation of every painting you start has to be finished in one sitting and it has to be a Mona Lisa. Because that mindset is one of the worst things you can do for yourself, to set yourself up for failure. It just is. Another thing, take work in progress images all the time. Check it digitally. Super important because it completely gives you a different take on it. Sometimes we're too close. Like we're just up here painting, right? And we need to back up 6 to 10 feet and get an across the room view. We need to take a picture and look at it digitally. And then when you get to the point where you think you're close, like you're close, put that painting on a wall, on a mantle, on an easel, around the corner in another room, and then go about your day. And then when you walk in that room unexpectedly and you see it, you're going to get a very quick gut reaction. And that gut reaction is going to be like, oh, no, it is not done. I see it. I see it. It's not. Or it's like, yes. And if it's yes, don't touch it. You're done.
Done.
Right? Yep. One last caveat. Your family members who live in your household love you. Most likely. I hope that they do. If they are not painters, be careful getting feedback from them, because they're either going to say they love everything that you do, or they're going to look at it and go, oh, I just don't get it. Ask people that are in the trenches with you, that are behind the brush in their own studios, that have experience problem solving their own paintings. That's the feedback that you want to ask for. Not that you can't ask your family members for feedback. It's just if you can find an accountability group, like here at Mastrius, we have this great group. Pop that image in here and say, okay, y'all, I think I'm close. There's something, give me some feedback. And that's golden to have access to that.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Ardith. Does anyone have any other questions for Ardith before we carry on?
No, just a statement and how timely your words are in my life right now. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that's awesome.
I think that was
Whatever
good
that
to give
means.
give myself permission not to be so worried about, I get so worried about changing my colors out on my palette that I don't want to start something else because I'm like, I don't want to waste the paint or be done with the paint that I'm working on. So yeah, those are great suggestions to get past that. Thank you, Ardith.
Oh, you're welcome.
So the next thing we're going to do for homework last month, Ardith asked us to do a must-do list. And I know some of you uploaded them in the library here and some of you just brought them along. Maybe we'll start with Anita. Do you want to share your must-do list first? Do you want me to bring it up? I can do that.
Sure.
Just go back into our library here. Zoom in for you there. Okay, go ahead. Talk a little bit about your must-dos.
Oh, I just looked at my paintings for the past probably year and a half. So yeah, I try to use a lot of color. I usually always have to have an animal in it. I don't usually do landscapes. My eyes and noses, even if the animal is not quite representational, they have to be fairly real for me to like it. I want to have movement and energy and vibrancy throughout the painting. I am also drawn to a lot of paintings that are whimsical and the pop surrealism where they have like nature or butterflies or something around the animal I am drawn to. So eventually I think I'd like to take a step in that direction. So that's why I put my wants.
All right, so these are really important because the must list for me, when I was trying to figure out what my style was or how to find a style, you know, and I had to break it down into what other artists were doing technically and then personally, I realized that they used certain elements consistently over time. They had a must list. So I started asking myself, what would my must list be? And for me, it was, what are the elements or the techniques that I want to paint with in everything that I paint? Meaning if I didn't use it, I would feel lacking in the process. So your list right here shows such a good list of what's important to you, especially the eyes and noses need to have sparkle in life, because that one signature element and how you approach eyeballs could be what, when people view your work, oh, that's got to be Anita's painting. I love how she does her eyes. It's a signature trait. And then where you have movement and energy, you know, you might spend some time exploring, even on a deep dive. What type of energy and what type of movement are you talking about, Anita? Is it that you want the object or the animal or the thing to move itself? Do you want the physical part of that body to move? Or is it the atmosphere around, right? So if it's the energy around it, then you would render that a little bit differently. But just being tapped in and being aware of what these musts are is pretty huge, because now when you go to paint something else, you're going to have this awareness that I want to use bold colors. I know that I want to put animals in, and I know I want these elements. And then if you think about whimsy or a touch or pop of surrealism, you now get to go down a rabbit hole of, well, what does whimsy or surrealism look like to you? What's your version, and how will you incorporate your version into what you're currently doing?
Well, Anita, did you use 1 to 2 elements that were your posted for critique. Maybe we can cover that when we get to your image, maybe.
Yep.
Great. I look forward to it.
Awesome. Okay, and then I'll go to, what else do we have in here? We'll cover all the must-dos of those that submitted here, and then we'll go into those that are just gonna talk about it. So here's my must-dos. And something that I noticed in my work in the past few years is that I have a bit of a stylized feel to my paintings. I like using bolder colors and pushing my color palette. And I try so hard to paint loosely, but there's even like going into abstraction, there's still so much structure in there. And I think it just talks a lot to my personality and how I've had to, with someone with a disability, I've had to be more of a planner behind the scenes, think about how I'm going to do something before I do it, to make sure it's all about like injury prevention for me and making sure I know what the outcome could possibly be. So I see that comes out in my work all the time, the structure and the need to have some structure. But I am noticing I'm liking to make like curves and lines and repeated elements. And I love that layering of colors that I'm starting to see in my work, and that mix of abstraction with representational. And something I'm trying to resist is having things too busy. So I am working on beating that out of myself, I guess, to fix that. So elements I definitely want to use. Yeah, I like that stylized feel, the curves and lines, and the blending of, or the partial blending of colors. And just, yeah, layers and boldness. That's
All
probably.
right, so here's my challenge for you.
Sure. Sounds
I
good.
want you to take your list here, and not right now, but I want you to narrow this down to a list of 5 things.
Sounds good.
And here's why. A lot of the things you have on here are elements of the same thing. Structure is number 1. Like, you mentioned structure multiple times. So obviously structure and function is a must for you, that is very important. And most likely it mimics your personal life as well. You just said because of your disability. So what I found was, when I was looking for my must list, I first identified technically in my paintings, how am I currently working? Like over time in my history, what have I been drawn to and what did I love, right? But then I gave myself permission to ask on a personal level, what were my core beliefs and how did my brain view the world? And were there any ways that those had things that were common? So my fascination with complex systems infuses into so much of my must list, because pieces and parts and the fracturing of lines and the complexity of the structure of all those things all fall under the umbrella of my fascination with complex systems. So as you look through this list, see if you can break this down further and to simplify your list, because most likely I think you're going to find 3 or 4 very core concepts that you gravitate towards as a human being and as an artist. And that's what you know in your bones is you.
I love that. Okay, I will do that, Ardith. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Hey.
And I see many of them, but I don't want to give it away. So you go down that rabbit hole and we'll chat later.
Sounds good. I will post that on our feed. Okay, next we have Anne Marie. Here you go, Anne Marie, go ahead.
I maybe because I wasn't at the first session, I might have been misinterpreted. I answered all of the questions, so I might have
You did
to
fine. This is good.
winnow mine back as well. So I started with what matters to me as a human being: positivity, freedom to create, joy, empathy. But I also like a coherence to things, maybe not the same kind of systemic structures that Ardith, you and Annea are talking about, but I know when I've done a piece, there's a sense, I get a calmness from looking at it because it feels organized. I don't know how to describe it. And it's not geometric organization, but there's some kind of balance or something in it. So the elements, so these qualities, I need to have joy. And like you were talking with Jean about expression through color is very important for me. And I need freedom to create abstract art. And so I love expressive color, mark making, palette knives, energy and movement in the piece. And then you were talking about what does that mean? I seem to really like diagonal lines, diagonal energy. Not circles. I tend to work better in sort of a rectangular format in sort of the portrait style. I don't know, I haven't really tried square yet. Like I find that the surface I'm working on sometimes dictates what's going on. Yeah, so color, bold color, marks, freedom, joy. I don't know, it's probably too vague right now, but
No, well, here's what it is. Reading through this whole list, the number one word that I'm resonating from you is freedom.
yeah.
It's like the top of the list.
Yeah.
Write it down and circle it. Freedom. And it's freedom of process. It's also freedom of expression. You're wanting, right, to tap into being a painter who is free to express what you feel at the time in whatever way you choose to do it. And I'm glad that you have these on here, because when I share my process and how I figured out mine, I say that with a caveat in that the way I found mine might not be the way you find yours. It's why I also encourage the phrase, what's your version? It is part of my branding package, because we're all going to come at this a little bit differently with a little bit of an awareness that's unique to us. And trust that uniqueness and how you approach these questions, but look for the common thread. Look for the common thread, because what that's going to do is give you a fundamental understanding of who you are as a creative human being. And that way, when you go to approach a new abstract or a new learning curve, you're going to know, I know I'm going to have some amount of freedom here. So if you give me a list of 10 steps that I have to follow and it has to look like yours, I'm probably not going to play well with that.
No.
Am I wrong?
No. I don't play well with that. Yeah.
So just owning and understanding that must of freedom is a huge knowing. And it's in that knowing where you give yourself permission to be the expressive human that you choose to be without trying to fit in the boxes or molds of external expectations.
Okay.
Annea, I love the last line of this.
On my radio station?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Yeah, I love that too.
Well, and you remember, like those of us who are old enough to remember transistors, like you would move it and it would be there for a bit and then it would go away and get all crackly. And so it's the same kind of ephemeral feeling sometimes,
And when we put the aluminum paper on our head and stood in hell beat, right?
Yeah.
Am I aging myself?
I remember that.
But here's the thing too. Go back and look at your list and those words that like crackle. Okay. That word crackle is very visual. And if you have that list and can identify areas and describe them in ways that are very visual, you can then turn around and use those visual markers to manipulate how you do your abstracts. Because I promise, if you use crackle paste in your process, you're going to connect with that memory of the crackle.
Interesting.
See how that works?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, paste is fun, Anne-Marie.
I've never tried it. I'm going to.
It is
Put
fun.
it on really thick and then you make it smooth by just applying a little bit of water, and then it blends bigger cracks that way. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, we're on to Jean.
Okay, so just before I start, the one thing that doesn't show on here, because after I wrote this, I also was writing my process and didn't put it on
Oh,
here.
sure. Okay.
But what came out through the process is something the way that I live, and it's been through me my whole life, is I hate repetition. And so, you know, if somebody says to me, you have to, and that's why I love what I've been doing for the last couple of years. When somebody says to me, I have to do a thing of trees, I don't want to be doing every friggin' branch. And, you know, I'm just not that person, or every blade of grass. So it was so freeing, like Anne-Marie's were freeing to learn that I don't have to paint all that stuff. It's crap for me. So anyways, that's kind of what would come through this, is that what I love about this process is that there's choices about what you can put in it. So what my must-haves are is really, my core value is strength. And so I want my paintings to feel strong. And the way that I do that is through movement and depth and this wide range of values. So that's my essence. My essence is strength, okay? And so I want movement, but I'm not so much a mark maker. It's more about the shape or the lines to create the movement, right? And I love to use the depth of colors and the layering of colors and the layering of texture and the way to bring light in through a painting. So it's like this, the use of depth to me is just the essence around that movement and energy through, like you use the word atmosphere. I do love atmosphere. I love all of that. So for me, this is about wide range of values. I love, you know, this using contrast, and, you know, I've tried to do these tight little ranges of values and they make me want to gag. And yeah, I love the bigness of it, right? And so the essence of the beauty around me, I want to show energy through movement and strength. And what I want is, it's very funny that you were talking earlier, Ardith, because I actually want to invite people into my painting, right? I want to use perspective and layers and different compositions. I want them to go, what do you do? And it's not, I'm not in abstract land. Who knows if I'll get there, but I will never be a realist either. So I'm somewhere in the middle, and I'm playing around with the concept of interplay. For example, a lot of my paintings right now are the interplay between land and water and what happens. So I think that's something deep for me. And, you know, kind of, and then I've done a thing of flowers, and can you actually touch those flowers and feel those flowers and smell them, right? So I want people to, like Alice in Wonderland, I want them to walk into my painting, you know, I want them to hang there for a bit.
One suggestion I'm going to challenge you to do, because movement and energy typically is something we all like to express because we don't want to be tight, right? We're not hyper realist painters, even though we might know how to. That's not what we're choosing to do, most likely. So what is it about energy and movement? The energy through movement and strength. I'm going to challenge you to spend some time with what's your version of that. What type of energy are you actually trying to express or convey? Because there's radiant energy, there's wind energy, there's sound energy, there's solar energy. There's so many different types. When we just say energy, it just means, well, we want the brush to move and we want it to be blended because it can be so much more specific than that, because you're going to be most likely fascinated or captivated by certain types of energy compared to others. And you use the word interplay, which is really interesting, because if you're putting a tree or a bird and then you have a setting, is it an interplay of energy between the sounds that are going on around them, the atmosphere that is moving, the electricity or energy that is invisible between the two? What is it more specifically in the energy that you're trying to seek? And if you can give yourself permission to creatively go there, what happens is you then begin to create in a more distinct, unique way, as opposed to a predictable way that you see many do.
Love it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. Lynn, do you want to go next?
Yes, I didn't type out my list, although I dug very, very deep. I went back through 10 years of photographs of my art, it became quickly apparent.
Shocking.
First of all, I have to start with a collaged background with nothing planned or intentional in mind. That seems to be very important. Bold, bright colors, simple shapes, very apparent in my work. But the most important thing was that it has to be, whatever I create, my voice, not what I see, what I feel. And I went all the way back to, why do I paint the way I paint? And I came to a memory that I didn't even know I had. When I was 12 years old, I went on a school field trip to the Ottawa Museum of Art, and I walked in, and I have to tell you, I grew up with an artist surrounded by art and art books and all of that. I walked into a room to see my very first original Emily Carr painting, and it was big. And I froze at 12 years old, and the power and the energy coming off of that painting and the shape and the color at 12 years old stopped me in my tracks. They had to come get me and lead me out of the room. And I realized that that is where everything comes from. I want people to look at my work and freeze and stop and want to reach out and touch the texture and look through the layers and see and feel the energy that I feel when I'm painting it. And that was a huge breakthrough. So thank you so much for this exercise. But that's it in a nutshell. The simple color, everything through color and simple shapes, but trying to convey the energy of what I feel behind what I'm painting.
Wow. It's, we take classes and we practice a lot because it's fun. We love doing it, right? We love learning how to paint. And I realized that when I challenge artists to stop and consider, well, why? I get kickback a lot because they're not emotionally ready to even ask the question. They're still in the how mode. How do you paint? But at some point, most artists get to, well, why? Why am I painting this subject matter this way with these colors? Like, why is it important? And what you just did was evaluate how you had been creating and what was important to you, and how does that bridge forward into what you're currently doing. And now you're sitting at a precipice of, with this knowledge and awareness, how is it going to impact your trajectory of how you paint forward? And it's exciting. So I'm just acknowledging that for you, and I'm thrilled, like for all of you, because for me, I want to know why, so I can articulate it with passion and inspire others. Because if you want people to walk into your painting, you got to inspire them either visually by how you paint or verbally by how you talk about why you paint what you paint. And if you can do both, it's a win-win.
Okay.
Great point. Amber, last but not least, go ahead.
I think I have the least, but mine is, so I've only been painting for a few years. So I tried to look back, and a lot of the first couple of years, of course, were just, as you said, like trying to learn how. So I looked back at the paintings that I've created that I remember feeling a lot of joy during the painting process. And the ones that are my favorite. And a couple of technical things that I noticed were, I like kind of undefined space. I don't paint in abstract. I paint kind of representationally, but I like to have space that isn't representational. So space that you don't know kind of like what someone's looking at or what's going on there. And then the other thing I like is soft edges. I really like some softness somewhere in the painting. So those were my technical things. And then I started trying to think of the why, and I realized that in my very first painting experience, what I loved was that I when I was painting, it was just like a landscape with a grain elevator, but it's a grain elevator I've driven past for my entire life on road trips since I was born. And I realized that when I was painting it, I actually felt connected to that grain elevator and to the land that it was on, and like kind of everything, I don't know, everything in that painting. So for me, I have to feel a connection to what I'm painting in order to want to paint it. I, of course, paint things that I don't feel that with, and those are not joyful experiences for me. So for me to love the process, I have to feel like a connection to my subject somehow.
That's huge, because what that tells you is when you go to choose your subject matter, you need to look into the spaces of your past experiences, your memories, your environment around, what you're currently tapped into, what you're currently exposed to. Because if you can do that and choose your subject matter from those wells, then you're going to be out the gate tapped in, as opposed to something just random. Like if you ask me to paint a painting of a squid, I would do it. I would look at a pic, like I would do it, but squids are fleshy like oysters, and it wouldn't be pleasant. Like I don't really have a personal connection that's really exciting about squid. You see what I'm saying? But if you ask me to create a painting of an opossum, I would love it because we've raised opossums. I have relationships with opossums. Their little fingers and all of their things. We had one called Buttons. Oh my gosh, I get excited thinking about it. So I'm just with you. I'm acknowledging personal connection on a must list. Use the wells of personal connection that you have. And then since you're such a new painter in the sense of you've only been painting a couple of years, give yourself permission to spend a year or two exploring and discovering many, many things. And as you do, ask yourself this question as you go. What are my preferences? What do I prefer in the process? Don't even think about the why. Don't even think about it unless you just want to. Ask yourself, what are my preferences as I take this class or as I learn how to do X, Y, and Z? And then if you can start identifying your preferences are going to lead to a must list down the road. And then you'll have a much stronger understanding of why to pull from later on. I didn't ask these questions. I had painted for 8 years before I was 40 before I even asked the question, what mattered to me? Yeah. So you're in a sweet spot and I'm jealous because if I could go back there and still make the living that I do, I would so do it, but I'll cheer you on.
Thank you.
That was all fantastic. Thank you, Ardith. So just doing a time check, we're about halfway through. We have about 55 minutes left. Ardith, I'm going to turn the time over to you. I know you're going to talk about setting goals, and then we'll slide into our critique after that.
Awesome. So goals, at the beginning of the year, I sponsored this thing in my membership called Wind Tide Bagwell Day. And Wind Tide Bagwell Day is a holiday that I just made up because I do those things because I can. They make me happy. But it's the tide of winter, meaning the winter solstice, and it's winter beginning to ebb and flow, and it's the tide of winter. And then we want to begin the new year well. So it's Wind Tide Bagwell Day. And then what we do is we create a selfie. So a painting that will be interactive for us for the year that you can engage with. And that painting gives us the ability to pose questions, remind us. I have to be one who has goals in my visual line of sight. I'm really good at list making. I'm like a master list maker. Y'all probably are too. But what happens is I'll make all these lists and I put them in a notebook and I put them in a bag and I tote them from point A to point B. And I sometimes forget what notebook I put them in, and I make a list again of similar things. And holy schmoly cow. is that. So what I end up doing for goal setting is I want to identify quarterly, 3 months at a window. You know, I do have my 2-year time frame, but in the next 3 months, what are the big things I need to tackle? And how can I break those down into a month at a time and into action steps? So I begin the year, and I'll even show y'all, it's right here. Good timing. This is the Windtide Begwell painting from not this year, but last year. Okay. So you can see I used a selfie, but what I have in this are words: breathe, bend, balance. I have the littles, storytelling, stay the course. And then I glued paper clips so that if I needed to be reminded of something really important, like I need to practice my form in my technical painting, it needed to be on this so that every day I walk into the studio, I see it. And if I see it, I'm going to be reminded of it, and it's not going to blow past the speed of how my brain works. So that was just a real creative, fun way to make goal setting more manageable and not overwhelming, because I know us, we put a lot of pressure and expectations on ourselves to identify, 30 goals that I want to reach this year. And it's a bit outrageous in that we can't physically do all the things that we think we should be doing. So my challenge to you all is this: sit down with yourself this month and look at the next 12 months. What would you like to accomplish in the next year, right? Maybe one big goal, one medium-sized goal, and then one small goal. And a small goal could be, I have a bad habit of leaving my brushes in the water, and I blow through brushes because I have poor brush maintenance. It's an Achilles heel. It's because I'm lazy, and it's not a priority until I started realizing how much money I was blowing through when I was going through so many brushes. And then when I lost my best brush and it died, like Murphy's oil soap wouldn't even bring it back. I grieved, and I realized a very small action step would be alter your brush maintenance behavior. So that was a big aha moment for me, and it was a small little goal, and it made a difference in that I now have a plan in place to do that. So you got 3 things that you're going to do. You're going to identify a pretty big goal. Maybe it's a show you want to get into. Maybe it's you want to launch your website, something big that you're going to work towards, a medium-sized goal that is attainable, manageable, and achievable, and then a small goal. Okay. And then once you sit down and you ask yourself what those things, look at your calendar and break this down into the next 3 months. If you can work in 3-month chunks, that is a more manageable time frame than trying to think that you've got to juggle something for an entire year. Okay. So if you work in that, a 3-month window, then you can look at your personal calendar, your family calendar, vacation calendar, and factor it all in. And then what you need to do is you need to make an action step list. Write that down. Action steps are the building blocks that build the bridge from where we're sitting with this want or desire to the goal of reaching it. You got to have some action steps. Otherwise, you're just going to sit over here and you're going to see it over there, and you can wave at it and you can know it's there, and you're never going to get to go visit it because there is no bridge from point A to point B. Okay. So you need to figure out, what action steps do I need to do? So for my brush maintenance action steps, I had to go in and I chose to inventory my brushes and organize them finally. It was an aha moment. And the number of brushes that I had was ridiculous. I'm a teacher. I can rationalize why, but still. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to pull out my 10 favorite brushes that I know I'm going to work with most of the time. And I'm going to put everything else away from me that I won't have access to. So that was an action step, right? And then I had to make a reminder in my phone, because if I walked into the studio at 9 a.m. and I knew I needed to leave by 1, I knew at 12:30, my phone better go, clean your brushes, Ardith, because that verbal reminder helped me over time change the habit of just walking out the door and leaving them wet. So it was just small little action steps. Now, the bigger the goal, of course, the bigger the action steps, or the more action steps you're going to need. So if you have a goal of, let's say you want to launch a website. I don't know if you all may have one. There's certain things you're going to need in order to do that. First, you're going to have to identify what website service you're going to use. Is it going to be WordPress, Squarespace, Wix? You're going to have somebody build it, all those things. And then you're going to need a list of line items. Well, what do you want on your website? What do you want your branding colors to be? Do you have a logo? There are very specific elements that you would need to identify. If you want to enter a show, right? If you find a show or even a gallery, then the action step would be, what is the submission process? You need to spend some time researching that. And different galleries have different submission policies. Different shows have the same thing. There's going to be a list of images that you're going to need to get. Do you have your images that you want to submit? Are they at a certain DPI? Most likely 300. You see where I'm going with this? There's very specific steps of what we've got to do, but we've got to be really wise and say, if we want to reach that goal bad enough, we are willing to alter what we're currently doing and make room for it and make it a priority. And if you do decide that that is the shift you want to make, then find those simple strategies of cell phone reminders, accountability partners, hard copy calendar, line of sight items where you can walk into a room and be reminded every day. I even have a list on my bathroom mirror of things that are most important for me to never forget. And why do I have it there? Because I look in that mirror every day, at least twice a day. It's like, wow, I know I'm not going to forget it because it's going to be reminded. So my bathroom mirror is probably my biggest cheat sheet tip I could even give you. Utilize your bathroom mirror. If it's private, if you've got 10 people, you might not want to put some things on there, but I'm saying is, so goals, that's a real accelerated explanation of how I even think about them. And I do this at the end of December, but I'm also thinking about this in November. I'm beginning to think, what's my year ahead? What do I want it to look like? And let me just encourage you. It can feel like a lot, and sometimes our worlds spin out of control and a lot of factors and impetus land in our laps, and they're going to divert us to other things. And sometimes that happens and you just need to give yourself some grace. If that does occur, self-correct and come back to your goals as soon as you can, but don't beat yourself up over it. That mindset thing is a big deal. We are not failures just because we don't reach a goal by an X date on a calendar, right? Mm-hmm. I know professionally for me, I made a list of big goals. Like one of the goals that I had was I wanted to be in Where Women Create magazine. I don't know if y'all know that magazine, but it is a magazine that celebrates women creatives, painters. They come to your studio. They take pictures. It's a beautiful magazine of the creative spaces of women painters and artists. And I knew, I was like, I want to be in that magazine. I loved it. But I also knew I didn't have a physical space that warranted a magazine at the time. So I made it a goal that one day I wanted an amazing studio. I wanted something that was beautiful for me. And I ended up getting it. My studio was in a chapel and it was gorgeous, and it was awesome. And at that moment I realized it's time. It's time for me to submit, because I finally knew I did it. And then I got into the magazine, and then I ended up landing on the cover, which was just even over the top. I say these things because the goals that I set, the desires of my heart, in how I want to impact the human heart of others through my business and through my creativity. I want to dream big. I want to dream big. And so far, I have reached every goal that I have put out there except one. And the one that I haven't reached yet is my children's book project and getting it published. And that is why this year I'm letting some revenue streams go and making it a priority, because I'm choosing to claim it and say, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get this project done, and done in a way that makes me happy. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ardith.
So I'm throwing that out there for y'all for goals in short-term, mid-term, long-term, a 12-month window, and a list of action steps. And we can add that, Annea, to the homework options.
Sure. Yeah, no, that sounds great. I will add that to the homework and make sure it gets updated in our group description box.
Raise your hand too if goal setting in that way is something you think might be really helpful for you. Or timely. Okay, good.
I like that it's simplified, because I think we've fallen into the trap of making like 100 goals. These are all things I want to do this year, but instead like breaking it down into like a quarterly thing. That is fantastic. So and being more broad, I guess, right?
So Ardith, do you want to see my initial thing I did from your contest at the beginning of January?
Yeah, because you did win Tide Bagwell, didn't you?
I did. I
Let's
get
see
it.
it.
I want to see it. Yeah. That makes me super happy to know she did it.
Well, now that explains all the posts. I was overwhelmed in my Instagram going, what are they doing?
Yep. There you go. There you go. And it's not too late. You can still do it, Lynn.
I know, I was just writing it down. Oh,
Heck,
that's
Wow.
wow.
That's cool.
Tell us about this, Jean.
So, so this is a part of a self-portrait that I did last year. And I thought it was kind of appropriate to hide it in my layers, you know, because I'm thinking layers. But actually, it's really interesting. It's a good start because it's got the big words in it. Like it's going big is one of my big things this year, and that means big paint. I'm now dreaming about doubling the size of my studio. So I find even the trigger of those words start to get us go down a path, right? Mm-hmm. So I really enjoyed doing that and thinking about goal setting visually.
Yes.
In this world of art, like I've grown up through many systems in the business world where you do goals and actions, and I didn't want it to be the same. Mm-hmm. So I loved your thing. It was all visual, interconnected with how you paint and who you are. And so
it kind of riffs on a vision board. So I'm like, vision boards and my Pinterest boards, right? I've got tons of those. But like you, it's like, I just need a visual reminder. We're visual people, and that's what we embrace. So why don't we use that to our advantage in our goal setting and put some creative visual reminders in our line of sight? I promise you, if you do it, it's going to change things.
Well, we're all very visual people. Like, how boring is it to write down everything? But if you get to put it onto a canvas, that's way more fun. I mean, you have to do that too, but still.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Ardith, are we ready for critique time then?
Yep. And as we go into critique, there's two things I'll ask each of you. Do you want a technical critique based on the elements of the how that you want to problem solve? Or do you want a conceptual critique based on the impression that the painting gives? That's the two ways I'm going to pick your brain.
Perfect. And ladies, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to raise your hand or drop the question in the chat as well. So
That's pretty.
this is Amber's reference. And then I think it's this way. Here is Amber's painting.
All right, Amber, tell us about it.
Okay, this is my clematis vine that is in my garden. One of my dreams for my garden, that's my other love besides painting. Oh, I guess, and my like husband and family. And one of my dreams for my garden is to have, my father-in-law has a 25-year-old clematis vine, and it goes up along his shed wall and over the roof, and it's just beautiful. And so when we bought our house, that was one of the first things I put in was a clematis vine so that one day I can see it when it's 25. So I just love, and this year it actually started, it's going up lattice and it started peeking through into our deck on the other side of the lattice, which I just love so much. So I've been trying to work on florals because they're very challenging for me for some reason. I love flowers so much, but I struggle to paint them. So I've been trying to paint more of them. So yeah, that's what inspired this. I just wanted to try a floral. And
So do you want technical feedback on this, or do
yes,
you want
please.
conceptual?
I would like technical feedback. It's not finished, but I'm kind of stuck where now I'm just like, I don't know where to go next.
Okay. Annea, there's a big square in the middle.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just writing in the chat to remind everyone. There we go. Sorry about that. I didn't even know
There we go.
that.
Okay.
What do you mean by conceptual, Ardith, by the way?
Conceptual would be if you had, if you wanted to convey the passion of this flower in a way where when I saw it, I got a sense of energy and passion. Is that coming through how you painted compared to, I don't feel like the form or the lights and shadows are strong enough. What can I do to fix that? That would be technical.
Perfect. Okay, go ahead. I think Amber asked for a technical feedback.
Yes.
Okay, Amber. So when you're painting things that have form, that are representational, the light source is going to be something you need to pay close attention to, especially if you have a reference photo. What direction is the light hitting the parts of the object? Because if you can identify a strong light source, then that's kind of a cheat sheet as to where in the structure would the lightest values go and what type of shadow would they cast in the deeper areas too. So in looking at this, you've got your yellow center, and then you've got along the edges of your petals, the lighter value. So we do see that one petal is kind of in front and one is underneath. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the color of your purple overall and you squint, and even if you were to convert this to grayscale, black and white, what you're probably going to notice is your values are pretty similar in the purple range. You don't have a big difference between the lightest lights and the darkest dark. So I think you can definitely push your value range further and highlight your lights even further. Your darks in this piece actually have depth and substance. I think you were a little afraid to go lighter because you didn't want to go white. Is that right?
Yeah, that's actually exactly right. I couldn't figure out how to do the light on this, especially with purple, because when I add white to it, it kind of goes dull instead of just lighter. Yeah, I really struggled with that.
So when you're mixing your color on your palette, are you putting purple and then adding white on top, or are you mixing a value range of puddles of the different values of purple?
No, I was mixing one purple and then adding white.
Okay, so then I'm going to suggest ahead of time, if you will, if you're going to paint representationally like this, values are going to be important to you.
Okay.
So you might want to transition or shift your palette at the ready to have the purple that like dioxazine purple. Let's say that's your base purple.
Okay.
You've got titanium white and then even a dark indigo blue or a bit of black. So you've got those to start with. And you need to mix some piles or puddles up of at least 2 to 3 tints.
Okay.
And 2 to 3 shades so that you have more of a value range to pull from instead of just having purple with a highlight.
Okay. Thanks.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Yep. And I think that might make a big difference for you in just how far you can push the lights and shadows in these.
Okay. Thanks.
You've got a strong piece here. So just keep going, just push your values further.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions, Amber?
No, that makes sense. Thanks very much.
Okay. Next we'll go to Anita's. So we've got Anita's reference here. Keep a little black bear. And then here is Anita's painting. Anita, do you want conceptual or technical?
Let's go with conceptual. Or 200.
So let me ask you about this. You said you painted bears all last year. What is it about the bear that you really want the viewer to understand based on your connection to them and how you paint?
Well, we go to I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, and we go to the mountains quite often. And like, I don't go looking for the bears, but I love it when I see them. And I just love it that I don't know, when I paint them, each one comes out with a different personality, and this little one, like, it's innocent, it's beautiful, it's like majestic in a way. It's like, I swear it's like my spirit animal, because like I like to be by myself, but I also like I'm a mama bear, and yeah, it's just, I connect with them, and I just want to, yeah, I want to add, I take that picture and then I add color and then try to like, you just like add, yeah, the life to the eyes, and yeah, the energy with the background as well.
Okay, so life to the eyes is going to be key. You're aware of that already, because if you're painting the spirit of the bear, the spirit of the bear is going to come through the eyes first. Yeah. And then exactly. And then your brush strokes, the way you've manipulated the blue for the lighter values. And there's almost a soft feel within the hair structure too. To me, it resonates a bit of softness, even though the bear has strength and structure and girth, right? Yeah. One suggestion that you might want to consider in a conceptual way is you've got the bear and then you've got the negative space, and there's a strong contrast between the two, right? They're very different. The negative space has horizontal color blends going left to right, and then the bear is almost placed on top of that. Yep. So my suggestion conceptually would be, can you convey a bit of that soft energy and almost a compassionate energy that the bear is showing, even though he's strong? Can you manipulate the negative space to take on that emotion as well through your brush strokes, through how you apply those strokes and color instead of just left to right? Could you curl them? Could they come and wrap around the bear a little bit? Could the bear engage with the energy going on around him, as opposed to a bear on top of a background? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Sweet, sweet face too. Like those eyes. stay on that vein of those eyes, because that's important to me when I paint faces. If you can nail the eyes, you can carry a painting. It's the second rule to value. You got to nail your values, but if you can nail your eyes, if eyes are in it, you can carry a painting if you get some eyes really strong.
Thanks.
Well done, Anita, and Amber too. I meant to say something. Both of those paintings are beautiful, and I love the purple tone that's going through class tonight. This is wonderful.
Right? Purple.
Okay. Next, well, I'll do mine last, but let's have Anne Marie's here. So, this is Anne Marie's painting. You want conceptual or technical, Anne Marie?
Conceptual, please.
All right. So do you want to share what your inspiration or intention was? Or do you?
Sure. So because I just joined the group and I was in Thailand, this is my dog ate my homework. This is an older piece from another group a couple months ago, and we were tasked with a representational landscape. So I tried very hard to come up with a representational landscape. And halfway through the process, I looked over at my palette knives and they were talking to me. So I picked them up, and the rest is kind of a blur for me, but it was a lot of fun. I just played with the paint that I had there. And I just felt so happy decapitating this tree. I can't tell you, like that, honestly, like I think there's blood at the base of it now. Obviously I added some more colors. So that's what happened. I don't know if that's what comes across, but I felt, and you were saying before about our must list, and freedom is important to me. I'm so glad I put this one in for this critique, because this captures freedom for me.
There is definitely freedom insinuated, especially with the top of the tree and how it's breaking apart, and the swoosh over the top. That swoosh takes us from the tree base, and it's off and up. It's almost flying away, right?
Yeah.
It just in a literal sense of how the energy is moving, because I think what you're going to need to do, because freedom is so important to you, and a tree in a landscape would be so literal. You want to paint the essence of the tree. You want an insinuation of a tree. You don't want it to be a tree. So you've got to consider, what would the essence of the tree look and feel like? What would the energy flowing through the roots and the cells up through the structure, through the leaves, through the branches, and out as it outgasses through the chlorophyll? That it's scientific, but really that's what you're after abstractly. To close your eyes and visualize, there is life moving through this organic structure. Can I paint that life in the colors that I want and in the strokes that I want? Your freedom has a lot to do with the broken blended stroke. Because you don't have a lot of hard lines. Like the hard line you have is the bark of the tree, or the base of the tree is a hard line, that red. And then you've got the curved line kind of that insinuates a hill or the dirt in the back. And then off in the horizon, there's a little bit of a curved landscape line in the back. But you're primarily a blended, broken line here. And looking at your background behind your head, you do the same thing. So I'm guessing that is a signature trait of how you prefer and love to work, through a broken blended line. And there's a lot of freedom in that. But if you're tasked in the future with painting something representational, you may consider painting the essence of it as opposed to the thing.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think this is a beautifully energetic piece here.
Thank you.
It is. Well done, Anne Marie. Really beautiful. Any questions, Anne Marie?
No, that's awesome. I did not know how to articulate when you said the broken blended stroke. I didn't know how to articulate that. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Okay, this is Lynne's reference.
No,
Jeans. Yep.
Jean's, sorry.
Yep.
I was thinking of Lynne. Lynne will be next. Jean's reference, just wow, cool. And then, oh, the other way. My apologies. Here is Jean's painting. Really beautiful, Jean. Cool or conceptual?
Conceptual.
All right, do you want to share with us your intention or do you want just a response?
So my intention, it's a couple things. One is there's a playful spirit between the land and the water here. And so I think that's it. I still want to show strength and energy because there is all this movement that we have. We live in the West and water flows heavy and strong when it's flowing. But yeah, to me, I also get excited by like a photo like this because I actually love the geometry or the shapes that come out of perspective and lines and yeah, so some of that.
It's also too, that photograph was so conceptual itself, just in the abstract nature of,
Yeah.
Yep. So let me ask you this, when you paint based on a photo reference, do you ever turn your photo reference upside down?
Yes. Well, yeah, I would say, I don't know if I turn it upside down, but there's a part to the journey where it's not the important thing anymore.
I will say challenge yourself too, to do that, use that strategy, especially if you're after a little bit of similarity that your sister's after, in that you want to paint the essence of it. You have a whole lot more connection to the representational. It is very obvious this is a body of water and these are rocks and those are trees, right?
Yes.
Your colors have a vibrancy to them and have an energy on their own. The yellow to the purple, definitely. The green up at the top kind of caps it off, though. It kind of contains it at the line where the rocks stop and the trees begin. So there's, for me, the feeling there's a lot more energy where the yellow and the purple begin all the way down to the water. But it's also too, I feel like there's a journeyman in this painting. Like yeah. I'm being sucked in or brought in and wanting to move through, right?
Yeah, I almost was thinking about a title and I was thinking, what if you got in a kayak and went through this? Like, so it is the literal journey in there too.
Yeah, so the structure, it definitely pulls you in with your composition, strong rule of thirds. But conceptually, it is, for me, it's about the rocks. It's about the structure. I'll challenge you though, the water that you are showing moving water. But I think technically, if you were to play around in journal pages or on some studies of ways to fracture water a little bit further, so that, because what happens in water, you've got the water moving, but the air has so much water up in the air as well, and the air's moving around. Could you convey a little bit more energy in the air that's right above the water, in between the rocks too? So there's not as much start and stop.
Yep.
Just something to think about, because your start and stops in the structure and the way you painted the yellow and the purple, it's beautiful. You've got those cold shadows in the purple. You've got the warm light hitting the yellow rocks. So that is so integral to the impact overall. But I just think you could push this a little bit further if you consider what the movement and energy would be that water impacts against the rock and up into the air. I
love it.
So any other questions, Jean?
No, I see, I love Miss and I love that play, right? So, I would definitely Take the
Flicks.
challenge up.
So technically think about how you might do it. You could flick a brush to have the flicks, more flicks of the splatter.
Yeah.
Definitely consider that. Maybe, do I have one close by? You might find, I don't have one close by, an old brush that has spread out bristles.
Yeah.
And play around with this on separate paper and just test out your brush strokes. But just a lightly flickered touch of some of that to give the waters bursting up. And I just think it might add another layer of energy that is going to push this to the next level.
Would you see, though, not just flickers, but would you actually see, you know, the power of a mist in there too?
Yeah. And this is why I said earlier, what's your version of energy?
Mm-hmm.
See, because my version, what I would do to this, I would fracture this, because fracturing is on my must list because of many different reasons. So see, I would actually come in and physically fracture it into and shatter it. I would shatter this, but that's not your thing. So your challenge is, what is your connection to energy? And if mist and something like that is resonating as, ooh, I feel like I want to try that, follow that curiosity. Okay. Yes. Yep. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Great job. Okay. Lynn has given us an outline.
Yeah, I don't work from reference photos. I work from my brain.
Awesome.
So
Great.
this appeared just sketching loosely, and I picked a background and wanted to incorporate this face into the background. So the piece that appeared or emerged from my process is actually a male face, which is very unusual for me. I paint the female face, and this male face appeared. There's lots of things, like I said, it's not my best work. There's lots of things I would work on technically, but conceptually, or I would like to know if it has an energy, if it draws you in, if you see an emotion. All
right, so let's talk about where emotion in the face comes from.
Okay.
First, it comes from the corners of the mouth, and it comes from the eyebrows. Those two parts of the physical face control emotion, and then eyes, right? But the eyebrows are really the commander of the ship, the captain of the ship, because the shape and structure of where the eyebrows are is really going to dictate mood more so than just the iris and pupil itself. The way you've painted the eyebrows on this character and the way you have these eyelids open, this character has an openness, a willingness to consider. He's not brooding, meaning I don't see a furrowed brow, right? He doesn't have that. He's not squinting out of concern. He's not frowning. He's got an open eye that you've painted him. So that makes this character approachable, but also having the feeling of there's a tenderness behind these eyes that I get a sense of, as if he's looking at something with compassion. And that comes directly from how you built the structure of his eyes and the corner of his mouth. He's not frowning. He doesn't have pursed lips. He's not shocked, like you've got this affect. And also too, he's not looking straight at me. He's looking over there. There's something that's catching his eye, and it's almost as if he catches a glimpse of somebody endearing or something that he's fond of or he has concern for, based on how you have painted him.
You just described my husband. And I did not see it until you started talking.
Okay, that's sweet. That's sweet. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say it explains the male face, because I don't typically, or that's not what emerges from my art. And I really do let it emerge. I don't usually typically have a preconceived idea. I just let it happen. So,
All right, so I'm going to challenge you too, as you paint further in your journey, and it might not be this year, but eventually it might. If your goal is to really have people impacted by your paintings and you want them to walk into them, expression, and you're going to continue to paint faces or people. Expression is going to be something you're going to want to spend time learning how to manipulate, and you're going to need to spend time considering your narrative of who are you painting. I know right now you're tapped into the intuitive process. It is important to you, and keep it that way, right? What shows up, you figure out something and you make it work that way. That's what you do. Spend some time with that, but give yourself permission every so often to say, well, what if I did create a person or a character or emulate my husband and capture maybe a brushy brow or take a selfie of a funny pose? What if I attempted to use a photo reference with an interesting expression and brought that to the intuitive process? Because what you'll end up finding is, to capture the heart of the viewer, you've got to give them something to consider that's going to sway them through the way you manipulate color, or the way you manipulate the details, the juicy tidbits, or the expression when you're painting a face. There's a lot of portraits, right, that have a flat affect. There's just a flat affect. It's typically a portrait pose. But I guarantee you, if you tilt the head and you manipulate the eyebrow, or you purse the lips and you cause the viewer to go, what they're thinking, it's not simply a flat affect. It's more interesting to spend time with that, to consider that. So I'm throwing that out there for you.
okay. Thank you.
Awesome. That's brilliant. Lynn, do you have any other questions?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, I love your work, by the way. It's
Oh,
really beautiful. Okay, my reference. Okay, so this is a reference. It's in Waterton, just south of where I live. And I just loved the moon shining on the ice. And just a closer image of the hotel that I used. And then this is my representation of it. I don't know, I probably need a technical feedback on this, but I also interested in that conceptual, because when I took this picture, Waterton in the wintertime is mostly a ghost town. Only a couple places that are open, and this was the view from our hotel room, and it actually has a really deep personal meaning for me and my husband, just having, like, we had some time away to kind of reset and really focus on ourselves, and do some healing in our relationship, which I've just loved. And so this is our view, which, looking at that, you wouldn't know any story behind that, but it has like a deep meaning for me, and that's why I wanted to paint it so much.
Okay, so you totally captured a mood based on your color palette alone. You totally captured a mood in this, because it tells a story. Like, for me, you've got this house up on the hill, you've got this beautiful moon cast, you've got these trees that are dark and contrasty, and it's mysterious, right? It has a mysterious emotion about it. But you have a personal connection to this, right? So if I had a personal connection to this, I might then ask myself, okay, as I've painted this, I have the light hitting the castle, and I've got the hills, and then the trees are in the foreground, and they're really dark because of the contrast. What we often know about light is that cool light can cast a warm shadow, and vice versa. Warm light can cast a cool shadow, right? So
Okay.
if this is cool light coming from the moon, which it would be, it's going to hit the sides of the tree that we don't see. The sides of the tree that we do see could potentially have a warmer light on them instead of the dark, flat, almost black umber color you have, just to
Yeah.
give them a little bit more form.
Okay, yeah.
Instead of them appearing as they're just flat. And here's another reason you might suggest that. If this experience was important in your relationship and it brought life back to you, or it helped heal something, I would want to figure out a way to bring a bit of life and energy into this color palette in a way that I connected with, as a reminder that this experience at this moment in our journey was uplifting. Just something to consider conceptually, and how you interpret that would be entirely up to you. But I do think following the tip about casting light and cool and temperature could make a difference for you.
Great, yeah. So the same thing would be like the warm the reflection on the ice would probably then be a warm reflection because the moon is cool.
Well, so the reflection would be cast from an object. So if cool light hits something like the side of the tree, then the other side, the shadow that it casts, typically is going to be warm. The temperature will change that way. So the moonlight is not hitting anything. It's hitting the top of the surface. It's still going to be cool. It's still going to be cool. But if there's a rock or a hill, then, and it's similar to, I think Jean's, the warm yellow light on those rocks, she painted purple where the light didn't hit it because the purple was colder. It's the same concept. Even the roof, this side of the roof that's not getting the moonlight on it would be a warmer shadow. It could be than the cold side where the moon actually hits the roof. So you could warm this side of the roof up just a little and also connect that color with the fronts of the trees that we see. And then that's going to bring the viewer, you're going to see the trees and it's going to take you right to the cottage because the color is going to be the bridge that takes you to the roof.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Ardith, just on that, the concept of light, reflective light is one of the hardest things for me. So I don't know if you know of any, I'm not talking about a science book so much, but more of an artist perspective on reflective light. Do you know any?
I only know by instinct.
Yeah, it's the
So
one
if
that
I
I
have a photo reference, right? If I have a photo reference and I know that it's a strong warm light and it's casting a cool shadow, then I'm going to look at that and say, okay, then where is the cool shadow? The cool shadow, what is it hitting? And if it's strong, if it has a strong presence in the photo reference, then I'll give it due in the painting as well. But if it doesn't have a significant secondary cast, then I may not. And it's just a matter of how much representation and realism I want to pull into the subject matter that I'm working with. It's an intuitive gut call, but I will typically really trust warm casting cool or cool casting warm because visually it makes sense.
Yeah.
In most ways.
Yeah. Okay.
Great technical tip. Thank you so much. Okay, we're just about out of time. So just to review, our homework is to work on, look at the entire year, make one big, one medium, one small goal, but then organize it into 3-month increments with subtasks. Ardith, did you have some additional homework for us to do as well?
Well, since we've talked so much about temperature, lights and shadows. I want you to work on a painting this month. And I want you to pay close attention to how you manipulate temperature between warm and cool colors. I'm not asking you to paint representationally and paint a thing. I'm just simply saying, pay close attention to temperature, warm colors paired with cool colors, casting shadows, whatever you interpret that to be. And go down that rabbit hole of considering that as you paint, and then bring that painting to our next session so that we can evaluate that and you can share your insight as to what you gained. Because you might find that you love a combination of a warm next to a cool that you didn't think about. I know for me, ultramarine light, oh, glory be, and alizarin crimson paired with isondolinone yellow. Like, it's a primary color, but it's like that little combination of those colors. Woo, I love pairing that, or mixing it with the orange and the blue. But so it's just spend some time with a curiosity of how color temperature can play a role in what you're currently working on. Does that sound good to y'all?
Yep.
And then in the meantime, in your mid-month meeting that you meet in a couple of weeks, bring this insight and bring your goals to that meeting and go ahead and talk about it then, so that when we meet again, you've got more clarity if you need to tweak on the back end as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ardith. Does anyone have any other questions before we let Ardith go? Great. This has been a wonderful session. Ardith, thank you so much for your time. And oh, team, thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you all. And Anne-Marie, again, thank you for joining our group. We're really happy to have you.
Y'all are
Thanks,
awesome.
Annea.
Keep up good work.
Okay, thank
Wonderful.
you. Great artist.
Enjoy the
Thanks.
rest of the
Thank you.
Bye.